As a daughter who has hearing loss.
Corruption in South Africa has reached disgraceful levels.
First things first, let's get to my daily that's my point feature. So, did you see Cristiano Ronaldo cry yesterday?
This is SAFM.
Music never sleeps, and neither do we.
Belleville or from Khayelitsha highway routes, the N1 and N2 moving nicely, getting busy, but no major obstructions. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
It's just gone 6 minutes after 6. Today is Wednesday, the 14th of January, 2026. Good morning. This is the Morning Brief on SAFM 104 to 107. It is, of course, our daily gathering point where we seek to wake up to sharp conversations, consequential stories, and the voices that drive the national agenda. From the classroom to parliament to the digital world, we will today unpack the issues shaping how we learn, live, and connect. And this morning, we're taking you from online safety battles in the United Kingdom to the country's, South Africa's, fierce debate over Starlink and school connectivity, and right onto the roads where learner transport safety is under the spotlight. So do stay with us. Big conversations, big ideas, and real-world impact between now and 9 a.m. And among some of the stories that we will cover this morning, we'll unpack the alarming situation around the Akerkloof Dam, which is running critically low, and that is in Knysna. And we'll tell you what 10 days of water actually means, the risk of shortages and plans being rolled out to keep the taps flowing in the town of Knysna and surrounds. First, at about 7:10, we'll speak to Dr. Lulamile Mapoloba, who is the municipal manager of the Knysna local municipality, on emergency measures, restrictions, and what residents should realistically expect when we talk about 10 days of water remaining in the Akerkloof Dam. Then at about 7:15, we get to a broader conversation about governance, and we'll do that with Sean Phillips, who is the Director General at the National Department of Water and Sanitation, just from their observation of the situation in Knysna and other areas around that town, and also talk about funding of infrastructure as well as infrastructure failures where those exist, and whether Knysna is prepared should our worst concerns about that situation come to fruition. So we'll speak to Dr. Sean Phillips about those themes at about Sean Phillips at about 7:15. The Director General there will join us for that conversation. Then at 6:45 in this hour of the show, is the country blocking a potential solution to connect thousands of underserved or unserved schools in terms of connectivity, or is government rightly enforcing the rules? We'll dive into the clash between transformation policy, regulation, and urgent learner access to, the urgent need for learner access to internet connectivity, and the criticisms that are being leveled at Parliament's Communications Portfolio Committee Chairperson Thulasizwe over her position on Starlink's stalled entry into South Africa. So Thulasizwe will join us, the chairperson of the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies. She'll talk to me at about 6:45 to respond to the debate and defend her position in light of the criticisms that have been leveled at her in the last while. And then lastly, let me flag this story. Load shedding, remember that word? The dirty word, load shedding, is falling into disuse. And even the once popular and necessary load shedding alert apps haven't been updated in more than 240 days, since we last experienced the phenomenon known as load shedding, the planned outage, well, not planned, deliberate outages that ESCOM used to implement from time to time. So we've not had to update those apps, and simply because there hasn't been anything to warn us about for at least 240 days and counting. ESCOM says the country enters 2026 with the most stable and reliable electricity system in over 5 years, crediting improved maintenance, added generation capacity, and its generation recovery plan. So we'll unpack why the grid is holding steady and what no load shedding for over 240 days really tells us, and whether this stability can last as old coal plants retire and the energy transition gathers momentum. So at 10 past 8 thereabouts, we'll be joined by Eric Shonmakam, who is ESCOM Engineering General Manager in the Office of the Group Executive for Generation, to talk us through the data, the risks, and what comes next. To the morning brief team, to your stations, please, for the takeoff. We have N. Musa at the news desk, keeping you updated. Rob Byrne is watching the highways and the byways across the country and will report to you every 20 minutes or so. Zaikan watching sport and will give you those updates throughout the morning. Melissa Buta will complete your picture with the morning brief in brief, and that is coming up in the next few minutes. And Dowling Lechela will keep you updated on all money matters throughout the 3 hours. And as always, Sipho Mantula with the Africa Update, taking you around the continent and her diaspora. And that is coming up at about 20 to 7 this morning. In it all, let's lead the conversations that move us. The number to dial, 086 000 2032. 086 000 2032. Your WhatsApp voice notes and messages to 0614 104 107. All right, this is the morning brief. Context, consequence, and conversation starting now.
Looking for a new fix in 2026?
Is Melissa Buta with the morning brief in brief. Good morning to you, Melissa. So once the matriculants have been handed over, well, once they pass their matric, they stop being the concern of Minister Siviwe Kwagube and become the concern of Minister Buti Manamela. Now he's weighing in on what the situation is going forward in terms of higher education access.
Yes, good morning, Thulasizwe. So Higher Education Minister Buti Manamela congratulates the matric class of 2025, which achieved an 88% class and a pass rate rather. Expressed over poor outcomes in key subjects like mathematics, accounting, and physical sciences. He urged students to consider alternative post-school treatment such as teaching and colleges, private institutions, scholarships, seats to reach again colleges and important to confirm for institutions. And I'm as to national development, to remain focused, disciplined, and consistent in higher education and skills development.
So some concerning and really dramatic pictures coming out from the just offshore from Noordhoek in Gqeberha yesterday. Tell me about this vessel that caught fire.
So on Monday evening, 21 crew members of the fishing vessel Scuba Dorado were rescued after a fire broke out on board while they were on work in Gqeberha. The fire was started when the crew was rescued, forced to abandon the ship before they were deployed their own life raft. This launched a life raft to assist recovering fishermen from the water. Additional vessels, Baraka, Maverick, and Volcano rescued the remaining crew. The National Sea Rescue Institute in Gqeberha the fishermen safe, but paramedics confirmed they required no medical treatment. Authorities including the South African Maritime Safety Authority and police will investigate the cause of the fire. The vessel drafted towards a reef near Cape Recife, and the owners had engaged the salvage and spill response company. So it is quite a serious story coming out this week.
And it's the scandal that just won't go away. It lingers years later. Phala Phala. Tell me what's the latest that's coming through from the various political parties in Parliament.
So political parties in South Africa are reigniting the scrutiny and burglary activities. Decision to classify its report on the presidential arguing no. Report to see how it's available.
Absolutely. Melissa, thank you for that. That's Melissa Puta with the morning brief in brief.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
On the weather front, the South African Weather Service has got 3 warnings for you that they want you to be aware of. We start with one that applies to the eastern parts of Limpopo, Vembe District, Mopani District, municipalities specifically, and over Mpumalanga, Lowveld, and Escarpment, including Ehlanzeni District Municipality. The warning that's in place in those areas is an orange level 9 warning for disruptive rainfall resulting in widespread flooding of roads and settlements, widespread mudslides, rockfalls, and soil erosion, danger to life due to fast-flowing streams, widespread damage to property, buildings, and loss of livelihood and livestock, as well as possible widespread displacement of affected communities. So that is the first warning. The second warning is an orange level 6 warning, and it applies to these areas, central parts of Limpopo, which is parts of Capricorn and Sekhukhune district municipalities, and the eastern highveld of Mpumalanga, Emakhazeni, Msugalikwa, Mkhondo, and Chief Albert Luthuli local municipalities. That orange level 6 warning is for disruptive rainfall resulting in flooding of roads and settlements, both formal and informal, mudslides, rockfalls, and soil erosion, danger to life due to fast-flowing streams, damage to property, infrastructure, loss of livelihood, and livestock, and that is the warning then for those areas that I mentioned. Lastly, a yellow level 2 warning that is in place over the central parts of Mpumalanga and western parts of Limpopo, excluding the extreme southwestern parts as well as the northern parts of KwaZulu-Natal. And that yellow level 2 warning is for disruptive rainfall resulting in localized flooding of susceptible formal and informal settlements or roads, low-lying areas and bridges, localized mudslides, rockfalls, and soil erosion. That is that warning then that I just mentioned. And then the rest of your weather will be like this. In Pretoria, it will be partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers with a minimum of 17 and a maximum of 28. Johannesburg, partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 15 to 26. Vereeniging, partly cloudy with widespread showers and thunder showers, 19 to 24. Polokwane, cloudy with widespread showers and thunder showers, 18 to 20. Mahikeng will be partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 18 to 32. Bloemfontein, partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 18 to 34. Kimberley, partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 21 to 37. Uppington will be fine, becoming partly cloudy, 23 to 40. Cape Town will be fine, but cloudy in the evening with light rain, 18 to 28. George will be foggy at first, otherwise partly cloudy, 20 to 30. Gqeberha, cloudy in the morning, otherwise partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers in the evening, 19 to 28. East London, cloudy in the morning, otherwise partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 21 to 28. Durban will be partly cloudy with isolated showers and rain, 23 to 31. Richards Bay will be cloudy with scattered showers and rain with a minimum of 23 and a maximum of 33. And lastly, Pietermaritzburg will have morning fog, otherwise partly cloudy with isolated showers and rain, 20 to 33.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international global news.
All right, at 22 minutes after 6, let's turn to this story. A major digital safety storm has been unfolding across the United Kingdom and beyond over how artificial intelligence is being used online. New laws in the UK are about to make it illegal not only to share, but also to create or request the creation of sexualized images of real people using AI, including on apps and bots such as Grok, and legislation to outlaw what is called nudification apps that enable that kind of content is also being pushed through the UK's parliament. Britain's communications regulator, Ofcom, has formally launched an investigation into Elon Musk's social media platform X over reports that its AI chatbot, Grok, was used to produce sexually explicit images of women and children and could even apply for courts. The regulator could even apply for court orders to block the service if it is found to be breaching the law. In fact, the Prime Minister of the UK, Keir Starmer, has been direct and warned that, and I quote here, if X cannot control Grok, we will, and we'll do it fast, because if you profit from harm and abuse, you lose the right to self-regulate, end quote. So let's unpack all of this. I'm joined by Dean McCaubrey, who is social media expert and digital ethics specialist. Good morning to you, Dean, and thank you for your time and your insights as always. What is the trouble with Grok?
Well, essentially, Grok is in the family of LLM, so AI platforms. Those are the platforms that we type prompts or even text messages almost to, and it gives us the response. And it's been around, the most significant was in November 2022 when ChatGPT arrived. These in the family include like Microsoft's Copilot, you could have Claude, you could have Llama, and so on. So essentially what we do is, at the beginning, 6 years ago, we were just inputting short sentences into the prompt bar and then pressing enter. What then happened is we were able to start to do text to image or text to video. And that happened more specifically, actually, text to video was really the hero of 2025. And probably text to image was really the hero of 2024. Now, most of us would go, oh, wow, this is one of the most amazing tools. What can we do with this our entire planet, our world? We can do some good. Unfortunately, what's happened with Grok is that there has been a window in which people can access it to go from text to sexual image. That is what has happened. Now, when you add X, which is also a company that is owned by Elon, then you are adding the virality to the fact that you can share those images. So if you actually do a hop, skip, and a jump here, originally we started out with text to AI, then we have text to image, text to video, and now we've got text to image with this viral super fuel that can put it out into the public domain, and anybody can see this sexual image, where an image of you, for example, or an image of me has been nudified, and basically a pornographic image.
Yeah. What the UK is trying to do, criminalizing the possession and even the requesting requesting the creation of these sexualized images using those tools, as well as another law that will actually, it's called the Crime and Policing Bill, which is also being advanced to make it unlawful for companies to supply these apps and tools that are designed to generate non-consensual intimate images. How easy or difficult is it to do, given the universal nature of some of these apps and how they apply, and social media?
Okay, a very good question. Like, I think a lot of people have actually asked me that. There are a number of different options. Essentially, Jeff Farmer and Liz Kendall. Liz Kendall is the technology secretarial minister over there. One thing I wanted to say is that to get this, we've already had adult content, and we've already had problems on social media. You wonder why with AI that non-consensual imagery like this nudifying haven't been attended to. Anyway, let me give you your answer. The way in which they could probably enforce it is they're going to do it under the Online Safety Act. So over there, they have this Online Safety Act, and they're going to try and prevent the creation and distribution of illegal content there, especially sexualized images and anything involving minors, towards and child sexual exploitation, essentially. And so what will happen is that they will then fine anybody if they so find those people to be doing it. Then what they might do is they might try and force capability limit, so to be able to put some type of blocking on certain types of people. They do that through a certain way, like geofencing, for example. The third one is obviously they're going to probably put a large threat on people being jailed. Okay, so part of it is technical, part of it is threat, part of it is geolocation directly into, let's just say, for example, people that are already criminal, people that already have reports, for example. And the final way that they'll try and do it will be to do it through Ofcom.
All right, let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you for your time and your insights. Dean McCowbury, who is social media expert and digital ethics specialist.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Very good morning to you. Let's kick off with Africa's football heavyweights going head to head today. AFCON 2025 reaches the semi-final stage. Seven-time champions Egypt taking in Senegal with Mohamed Salah up against former Liverpool teammate Sadio Mane. Egypt are chasing their first title since 2010, while Senegal arrived with the edge, having beaten the Pharaohs in two recent AFCON finals. And in the other semi-final, the host Morocco will face Nigeria, the clash of the tournament's two most informed sides. The Super Eagles are unbeaten, powered by Victor Osimhen and Ademola Lookman, while Morocco boasts the best defense in the competition with the red-hot Brahim Diaz, who scored in 5 straight matches. You can catch it live on SABC2 as well as SABC radio stations. Now, the Nigeria head coach, Eric Shell, says he's full of confidence in whatever player is selected to fill the midfield role vacated by captain Wilfred Ndidi. Now, Ndidi suspended for tonight's showdown at the Prince Moulay Abdullah Stadium after accumulating yellow cards during the tournament, leaving the Super Eagles without one of their most influential figures.
I'm disappointed for him because he brings so much for the team. But we are a group. There is some very good player, who are in the pitch and we wait a chance to show something that they can bring us. So I'm very confident about that. So just I have to do a choice between some player. everything will be fine.
On to cricket now, the Paarl Royals lit up Woodland Park, completing their highest successful chase in Day 20 history. Finally, Nani Roma leads the Dakar Rally for the first time since 2014. Veteran overcame three punches on stage 9 as penalties reshuffled the leaderboard. After sport, we'll be back in the first lane, top of the hour. I'm Zaitan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, the South African Weather Services has issued an orange level 9 warning as the rains continue to wreak havoc in the Vembe, Mopani and parts of Sekhukhune districts in the Limpopo province. The Provincial Education Department has announced that schools will not open today in high-risk areas to protect learners and teachers. The National Assembly has adopted the Special Appropriation Bill. The bill will now be sent to the National Council of Provinces for its concurrence. And US President Donald Trump has urged Iranians to keep their anti-government protests and has told them that help is on the way. He's been consulting national security advisors on what steps to take. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Morning, a reminder of heavy rains and localised flooding across much of Mpumalanga and Limpopo. Please take it nice and easy if it's been raining for a while where you are. Those rivers are rapidly rising and very dangerous to cross. Durban looking okay this morning. The stationary truck at Cato Ridge is being cleared away. If you're going Pietermaritzburg, Durban on the commute, it's fine. Joburg's Mike 1, heavy today from Boysons to Braamfontein, and 1 through Diepkloof to Uncle Charlie's looking fairly busy as well. And Cape Town just backlog of traffic inbound on the N2, moving slowly through towards Jan Smuts Drive. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The business update on SAFM.
All right, for that, let's turn to Ndawuleng Lechela. Ndawuleng, good morning. Let's start with the trend among global central banks and rallying behind Jerome Powell as he comes under pressure in the United States.
Morning, Tula. So top central bankers have stepped in to defend U.S. Fed Jerome Powell, warning that legal and political pressure on monetary authority risk undermining global financial stability. In a statement, President Christine Lagarde and Bank of England Governor Andrew Bailey said independent central banks are essential to safeguarding prices and economic confidence, adding that Powell has consistently acted in the public interest. The statement follows Powell's confirmation that investors are investigating his role in a $2.5 billion renovation of the Fed's Washington headquarters. Powell has argued the probe reflects political satisfaction with the pace of interest rate cuts. Focus now is turning to a looming Supreme Court hearing on President Trump's attempt to remove Fed Governor Lisa Cook. Legal experts say the outcome could redefine executive power over the central bank, potentially opening the door to the removal of Powell and fundamentally altering the Fed's independence.
You'll forgive me if I don't have much confidence that he won't get what he wants with the Supreme Court. I don't know. From afar, not being really familiar with the nitty-gritty of how it all works out, I've just gotten the sense that he now gets whatever he wants from many institutions. Anyway, moving on from there and staying in the United States, tell me what JP Morgan is saying about Mr. Trump's proposed cap on credit card interest.
So JP Morgan really pushing back on that plan, warning that President Trump's plan to cut credit card interest rates at 2% could reduce access to credit and harm consumers. Speaking after the bank's latest earnings, CFO Jeremy Barnum said banks may cut back credit card accounts or even challenge the move in court if it is pushed without proper legal backing. Trump proposed the 1-year cap last week, saying credit card companies have taken advantage of consumers as interest rates climbed to record levels. Average card rates in the US are now 20%, reflecting higher default risk and several years elevated rates. Trump has said the cap should start on the 20th of January, but it is unclear whether he can enforce it without approval from Congress. Proposal comes as JP Morgan solid fourth quarter earnings, also showing that consumer lending remains a major source of income for the bank.
All right, Ndauling, how did we close yesterday and how are we starting the day in those markets that have started trading?
Stateside, markets closed in the red as inflation supported the case to leave rates unchanged at the Fed meeting come end of the month. Economists uh, have raised pause bets. This would say rate cuts are still on the table, perhaps later in the year. Back at home, the JSE shows mostly in the green, gold and oil prices giving the most boost. They saw the oil share end the day 6 higher. Then looking at crude in greater detail, and at that point, oil broke past $65 a barrel, sitting this morning though to just under $64 a barrel. Protests in Iran and Trump's intervention plans really driving activity in that market. Over on the currency front, the rand making big gains this morning as emerging market assets remain in vogue. The local unit trading at 1636 greenback. Lastly, in Asia, it's green across the board. Traders on that front eyeing what's been playing out in Japan, particularly on the political.
All right, Ndauling, thank you for that. We'll talk to you in the second hour of the show, just after 7:30.
Africa Update on SAFM.
Sipho Mantula is on standby with that. Raz, good morning. Let's start in Uganda, 24 hours and counting, and already some signs that could be, at the very least, disconcerting. Tell me about the internet shutdown as well as the deployment of the military before the elections.
Refreshing morning, Tulas and Jumbo Africa to the listeners. Tulas, as Uganda decides, we know very well, Tulas, that whenever you have the elections, issues of misinformation, disinformation, issues of electoral security becomes a cause of concern to the Electoral Commission. But here what we see yesterday, it was final rallies. Secondly, Tulas, was that the shutdown of internet, but there is an exception to the Tulas. It's only the Electoral Commission, the aviation and the banking sector is not being challenged Tulas in terms of connectivity. But challenges also raises from the election observer missions that have already raised that it will hinder their work in terms of data collection. And this will be shut down for 48 hours. And as I said, the issues around misinformation, disinformation, that's what the Commission on Communications in that country have said to can shut down the internet. To have the military Tulas, we know very well, it is the same script that we saw in many African countries, Tanzania, Cameroon, last year during the elections. The presence of the military in the capital city has been that script and that norm. And also finally, like I said, Tulas earlier, it's important to have 1,655 observers. And those observers coming from AU, Commerce, IGAD, East African Community, they will need access to the information. They will not want to have the same experience they had in Tanzania and Cameroon, and they could not access information, and they were forced to delete some of the evidence that they had on what we'll call malpractices that happened during the election process.
Let's go to North Kivu in the DRC. Usually when we talk about that region, we are talking about some kind of conflict situation, forgetting that sometimes the threat and vulnerability may not come from military force, but from forces of nature.
That is quite true, Tulas. The landslides that we saw in the DRC yesterday reminds me what also I saw yesterday. Tulas, having some heavy rains as well and flooding in some of the areas. But going to Goma, Arusi, the area in the that's where there was a landslide that has claimed taking lives and 80 people are missing. This has happened before, Tulas, when we look at the topography of North Kivu of Tulas, beyond the landslides. Don't know whether you recall, there's still a miracle.
Yeah,
so we might look at the landslide, but we have the volcano also erupting in that area. Whenever there is conflict, even when there is no conflict, that of nature will always come. And that's where there's a challenge for government. 2023, I don't know whether they will ask Kinshasa to intervene to us or because because they who manage this current crisis as government.
All right, this is interesting then. After the fall of Yahya Jammeh all those years ago, being replaced by Adama Barrow, tell me about what the Gambia is saying about paying reparations for victims of human rights abuses.
Tulas, I think this is a very classical case study that we might also report for the AU when they meet. They say, to say for reparation agenda, at least the Gambia is pushing. We can look at the victims of human rights abuses during the reign of the Gambian former President Yahya Jammeh. Now, the Gambian Reparation Commission saying that they've started to us in terms of distributing those reparation packages in different phases. And this happened to us, as you recall, that Yahya Jammeh ruled the Gambia from 1996 until 2017. He went exiled. Adam Barrow became the president. The Gambian Reparations Commission was created in 2017 to look at abuses, human rights, collect testimonies from victims and witnesses. Finally, as you know, the work of the transitional justice key to us about reparations. You need reconciliation in the Gambia. No amount have been stated to us. You will recall in South Africa, the reparations was already known to us. During other money still remain in the Justice Ministry of TRC. And these are the politics of how do you repeat when there was settlement and in many African countries. Like I said, South Africa, we still struggling. Hence, we have even the commission of Champepe that has to look at the delay cases.
I'm intrigued when I say Pope because I'm a big fan of those instances and institutions that demonstrate non-tolerance for human rights violations that are led by Africans themselves, where it's not the ICC or some other tribunal elsewhere. The case of Hissène Habré in Chad, for example, and how that region came together and came up with that solution and had a tribunal to try this man to say what you did is not okay, and we as Africans are the ones to tell you that what you did is not okay and to hold you accountable for that. So I'm a fan of those things, and I'll be reading up on the reparations in the Gambia. Lastly, your historical archive. 14 January 1933. What happened?
It's almost 93 years ago, but this date is not clear when you look at the archives. Whether is it the 17th, is it the 14th, 1933, 1934. But there's an African, a teacher, a journalist, the first African Secretary General of the Communist passed away in Moscow on this day. That was Albert Thomas Zula. He was born in Free State in a small town of Brownsville. But this is the man who also joined the trade union Sula, went to Russia to study, also to be a leader of the Communist Party. There is a lot being said about this man, but hardly being remembered if you look at the alongside of Pabo, J.T. Gumedo. These were the people he was working with. He went to the Lenin. He wrote about the plight of the black workers during those times. Only the problem is only what he had challenges, which happens to any leader to us. And that challenge was the issue of alcoholism to us. That they say he left was not still having a drinking problem. He went to Moscow, that's where he faced challenges in terms of health. And he died on this day. And I said, this is a person that we need to honor to us. Zula, who was influenced by people like Douglas Walton in the Communist Party, influenced by Bishop Brown. There were many people that influenced this Black African who went to Moscow in the late 90s. So Asante Fana Plus, that's what's in the conversation. I have been observing Education Month and welcome back to school to us for our learners. Many of them they are going back to school and we'll still keep giving them the history as we are leading the in Africa and South Africa.
All right, Sipho, thank you for that. Sipho Mandula with your Africa update for this morning.
For 90 years, one voice has informed, challenged, and connected a nation. SAFM, South Africa's national English public radio station. Established in 1936 as the SABC's very first service, the A program, evolving through the English
angikhathali eyo nto phela isuke inzima hard work I am ngivuke ekuseni ngenza uhlelo melela benza njalo.
Now, the debate over the telecommunications and internet access has taken a sharp turn into political controversy as some critics accuse a senior parliamentarian of misrepresenting key facts about Starlink's stalled entry into the country. My Broadband's Hanno Laboskachny says Communications Portfolio Committee Chairperson Khusela Diko's claim that Starlink's proposed connectivity to underserved schools doesn't move the needle an inch is misleading and takes aim at her dismissal of the company's potential impact. In fact, Laboskachny notes that SA Connect, the government flagship plan to connect public schools, has delivered internet to only a fraction of the schools it set out to reach, with thousands still left offline and no clear timetable for completion. Amid this backdrop, Diko stands firm in her stance that satellite services must meet the obligations that everyone else in the sector is already delivering on. Let's speak to her then. Khusela Diko, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies. Good morning to you, Khusela, and thank you for your time. You saw the article, I'm sure, on My Broadband. Basically, the long and short of it is that some of the claims you make are disingenuous and you misrepresent the true picture of the likely impact of Starlink versus what you're saying are already programs in place.
Good morning, Chilas. Good morning to your listeners, and thank you so much for inviting us. Indeed, yes, I saw the article, and I must say I was taken aback by the strong language that I liked, but I can't say it was a surprise that My Broadband would take that particular posture. I mean, they've been a very vocal proponent, even propagandist of Starlink, so I'm not surprised that they would try and push their advocacy against the claims you're making. Maybe just to clarify, Tulas, this was an ex post. I mean, it wasn't some comprehensive thesis that we were discussing connectivity in South Africa in general. And there's this claim that people keep repeating that why would we be opposed to Starlink because they're going to connect 5,000 rural schools? Now, I want to clarify that nobody is opposed to Starlink. We are not technophobes. We do want connectivity in the country. But we have said Starlink, like any other operator, when they come into this country, like the Amazons of this world, who are also competitors of Starlink, they must play by the rules and they must ensure that they comply with the legislation of the land. Now, on the issue of 5,000 rural schools, I've said this is not a charitable act. The law and the regulation, as they currently stand, they demand that there be 30% equity to historically disadvantaged individuals in order to get a license. But over and above that, when you are allocated spectrum, which Starlink would need, you have universal service obligations that require you to connect in the region of about 5,000 schools anyway. So it is not that when they bring this 5,000 rural schools connectivity, it is something groundbreaking, it is something unique. It is currently demanded in the current legislative and regulatory setup. And you have our mobile network operators, all of them operating under those rules. And as I said, I mean, Starlink is not the sole provider of low Earth orbit satellites, and their competitors are willing to work within that framework as well.
Yeah, but did you make the point, and you take the criticism that says the point you make about the programs that are already in place to connect those schools anyway, 22,000 schools in the form of SA Connect, those plans are not moving apace, and the pace there, if I recall correctly in the article, basically saying that the target that has been set had been set to connect all 22,000 is very far from being achieved.
I don't think that in my post I even dwelled into that. I was not making an assessment of government program. I was responding to the issue of this so-called charitable act by Starlink. But let me say this to us: firstly, SA Connect is a totally different program that is targeted mainly at government schools. So I don't know, I mean, so at government facilities in general, not necessarily schools. How it's conflated to this argument, I don't know. The program that has recently been rolled out is these universal service obligations that I'm talking about. So when the mobile network operators were allocated spectrum, I think 2021, 2022 or so, they were given these 22,000 schools to connect. To date, about 16,000 of them have been connected already. We're not happy with that program in Parliament. We're not happy with the standards around it. I suppose that's a debate for another day. But I did say in a subsequent response to my broadband, I said, "Look, the issue is then the pace of connectivity. There's a universal service and access fund that the minister should be able to go into and subsidize those MNOs. That is what the fund is for, to subsidize them to get into rural areas. But also, I want to reiterate the point that we are not opposed to satellite. We know that it can be a game changer. So the likes of MTN are speaking to companies like Link Global, Vodacom is speaking to Amazon, Vodacom is speaking to Starlink. So if satellite ultimately is going to get us to move at a faster pace, then by all means it's welcome, as long as it is within the prescription of the law.
Just shifting focus slightly as a parting shot, Kosela. Just, I don't know if you heard the conversation we had earlier on at the start of the show. You may not have heard it, about what the UK is doing to try and counter the use of chat bots and the likes, AI, to generate harmful images, sexualized images of women and children, as well as this whole phenomenon of mis and disinformation on social media. It's something we've dealt with for quite some time as a country. What's your thinking as a committee and also as a committee chair about how quickly, how rapidly we need to move on this issue, and what the parameters could end up being for how we counter the harms without, hindering the technologies?
Yeah, Thulasizwe, we've really been just singing the theme of archaic legislation that does not meet the digital era in which we are. And, I do want to make a concession that South Africa is far, far behind. It's one of the reasons why, as Parliament, we have been speaking about the fact that we want now to initiate our own legislation. We've been waiting for government. It's not working. We've got a framework around legislative reform that the committee is yet to adopt. So I can't go into detail on that because the committee still needs to consider it. But to say that issues like AI, I mean, we've been sitting with a national AI policy that was consulted in 2024 or late 2023. There hasn't been much movement around that. We've been speaking about the need to regulate the over-the-top services, which would include the likes of these platforms like Twitter. There are examples, comparisons from around the world, the Digital Services Act in the EU. We've looked at some examples in Australia and other jurisdictions, but we are not moving as fast as we should. And I think it's an area that, if it's not given immediate attention, is going to cause further harm. Firstly, from misinformation and disinformation, like you're saying. I'm sorry, I didn't hear debate earlier on. But these sexualized images that you're now seeing on our platforms through AI platforms, but not the bad though. We also have a responsibility to enhance, the potential that AI can add, whether it is to health, whether it is to education.
Right.
So it's something we're definitely giving attention to, but we're not moving as fast as we should.
Right, let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you for your time, Kosela Dipo, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies in Parliament.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. We go back to school and we go back to traffic as well. A lot more traffic this morning, noticeable on all your major key commuting routes across the country. Just like that, it is popping up as if it's come out of nowhere. We've got a couple of incidents as well. A crash on the mighty Mopani Highway just after Hebron Road going down to XX, so quite heavy, leaving Shoshanguve on that route. And there's already a backlog on the M35 Sodpan Road, avoiding the mighty Mopani Highway going in towards Onderstepoort, so heavy traffic there. Lots of traffic around Joburg's run up into central Joburg from the south, the N1 from Devlin through to Deep Cliff Heavy, then from Boysons up through the Crown interchange in towards Braamfontein. That is super heavy, an earlier crash scene there. And Snake Road out just on the eastern side of Benoni, you may well find that route closed due to the sinkhole repair works that are due to go in. Between the N12 and Pioneer Road, there is a bit of backlogging traffic, so you may be just queuing up to get around the closures, or there may be some restrictions on that section of Snake Road, but it is very slow this morning. Looking okay. Pietermaritzburg to Durban, no issues around Cliffdale and Key Ridge, which is the good news. And Cape Town, we're back to traffic on the M3. We haven't had any for weeks now, but if you come up that M3 route from Constantia all the way through Bishop's Court towards Paradise Road, welcome back to traffic there. Stellenbosch Arterial out of Blackheath, quite heavy this morning, down towards the R300. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
A home is more than bricks and mortar.
myself in
Just on the issue of scholar transport, as schools across the country welcome learners back, a practical road safety initiative is being rolled out in the Western Cape that could perhaps make a difference on the safety of these pupils on their commute to and from school. The province is offering free vehicle safety checks for scholar transport operators ahead of reopening. Let's speak to Maxine Bezuidenhout, who is City of Cape Town Chief Director of Traffic Management. Good morning to you, Maxine, and thank you for your time. Just tell me a bit more about this free vehicle safety check. What's the thinking behind it, and who are you targeting in terms of its implementation?
Good morning. Thank you for having me. So basically, it's all about compliance. It's not about, wanting punitive province. And we've had such good cooperation with municipalities opening up their vehicle testing centers as well. The solid transport operators, come, let us check your vehicles. Let us check it, before school starts. It starts today in this province. We did it Monday and Tuesday. People, though the uptake was extremely slow, we got onto media and radio messaging and thinking, come let us test the vehicles. And if we do pick up defects, we'll give you a chance to go and fix it. But I can say there's a number of them that did not come. And there are a lot of operations that are taking place today, tomorrow, and for the rest of the month to start checking the solid transport operators. So they have been warned, they have been offered to come and have the vehicle checked out for free. And I mean, it's a free service. Normally you would pay for it. But the province, nationally, we have run this campaign to check vehicles, public transport vehicles, especially the solid transport vehicles, to ensure that our learners get to school safe and our parents are at ease about taking the kids to school.
So if these free safety checks that you've been offering are the carrots, what is the stick for those who did not comply? And what does it say about how seriously you take the rest of the value chain that ensures safe scholar transport, including licensing and the likes?
So the stick is this chief director is about to go to a school in Somerset West. And the municipal traffic police are also at various schools. Our transport enforcement units are out. So if you didn't take up the initiative by having your vehicle checked out and we come across your vehicle, those vehicles will be suspended if we find any defects on it, which essentially means that those vehicles are out of operation. And then kids and parents in a negative aspect because they have to find different ways of getting children to school. So that is the thing is, we've given you an opportunity to come and sort out the vehicles, bring it to us to have a test. But if you didn't do that, and if you're not intervened, we will take you off the road.
And what is this operator help desk on wheels? Tell me how that fits in with this whole initiative.
Are you talking about the vehicle testing units, the ones on the side of the road?
Yes, the one about licensing, helping with licensing applications.
Oh, yes. So, that is all across the country as well. If you're a solid transport operator and you are not registered and you don't have a solid transport permit, then that department is out and about, getting people on the list, helping them with the registration and getting them the necessary permits in order to transport learners to school. So that is also in play.
All right, thank you for that this morning. That's Maxine Bezuidenhout, who is City of Cape Town Chief Director of Traffic Management. The carrot is there, and so is the stick, so you've been warned. Let's go to N. Musa on standby with the latest news.
Outsurance is in the business of saving you money on your car.
In our top stories, level 9 weather warning issued for Limpopo, and Minister Tau welcomes approval of a Goa extension bill. Good morning. The South African Weather Services has issued an orange level 9 warning as the rains continue to wreak havoc in the Vembe, Mopani and parts of Sekhukhune districts in the Limpopo province. The Provincial Education Department has announced schools will not open today in high-risk areas to protect learners and teachers. Human Settlements MEC Basukopo Makamo held an emergency meeting to coordinate assistance to disaster victims last night. Department spokesperson Amos Pahos says a follow-up meeting will be held today.
The meeting was to coordinate needed assistance after the South African Weather Services had issued a level 9 warning that is causing havoc mainly in Mopani and Vembe districts. The MEC has requested all the mayors working with disaster officials from the districts to do costed preliminary reports on the damages that the rain have caused that must be submitted urgently to the Provincial Disaster Management Centre.
The National Assembly has adopted the Special Appropriation Bill. The bill will now be sent to the National Council of Provinces for its concurrence. The main objective of the bill is to appropriate an additional amount of money to the Department of Health to address a shortfall due to the stopping of PEPFAR funding last year. Deputy Finance Minister Asher Surapan explains the importance of approving the bill.
Although the expenditure contained in this bill has already been authorized in terms of the PFMA, these funds are already being spent as we speak. The requirement of it being tabled as an appropriation bill improvement is important as Parliament has a fair place. Critical that Parliament has full transparency and accountability. We must uphold Parliament's constitutional authority to appropriate funds. This debate followed robust consultative processes that began tabling of the special PFMA. Valuable comments were received from parliamentary committees and political parties and the Parliamentary Budget Office, as well as the Fiscal and Finance Commission, civil society organizations.
The Western Cape Education Department says it's ready and prepared to welcome hundreds of thousands of learners back to school today. The department says it's looking forward to welcoming learners to the start of the 2026 school year. Western Cape Education Department spokesperson Bruna Hammond says teachers have, however, returned to school on Monday in preparation for the beginning of the school year. She says 96% of learners who applied for grades R, 1 and 8 have been placed. Trade, Industry and Competition Minister Parks Tau has welcomed the approval of the African Growth and Opportunity Act extension bill by the U.S. House of Representatives. The approved bill proposes a reauthorization of AGOA with all beneficiaries included for 3 years until 2028. The bill will proceed to the Senate for consideration and approval before it's sent to the U.S. President for his approval. Kamal Ali is Minister Tau's spokesperson.
This will provide certainty and predictability for African and American businesses that rely on the The renewal of AGOA will complement and support the implementation of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area and creation of regional value chains, as well as support American businesses that depend on inputs and products imported into the U.S. market under AGOA.
And finally, U.S. President Donald Trump has urged Iranians to continue protesting and has told them that help is on the way. He's been consulting national security advisors on what steps to take. Trump also vowed very strong action if Iran hangs protesters, this as a 26-year-old man is due to be executed today. The BBC's Kashaya Jonaidi reports.
There is no way you could have a proper judicial process and have such a strong sentence in less than a week. This person, Erfan Soltani, was arrested on Thursday. He was sentenced to death on Sunday. His family has been informed that he's going to be hanged today. The regime has done this before. During the Massa Amini protests, they did the same.
Recapping the top story, the South African Weather Services has issued an orange level 9 warning as the rains continue to wreak havoc in the Vimbe, Mopani and parts of Sekhukhune districts in the Limpopo province. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754.
With Outsurance, I'm saving a whole 729 Rand.
Another satisfied Outsurance client saving more money every month. 32-year-old Parushka saves 729 Rand a month on her 2020 Hafal H2. And after 3 claim-free years, she gets an out bonus.
Yes, I'm ready for that out bonus.
How much money could Outsurance save you? Get a quote now. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Licensed insurer in FSP. TCs and information online.
A very good morning to you in your SFM Sports headlines. Dr. Puso Desejane has opted to move to Major League Soccer. He'll be joining Chicago Fire in the new season. And golf is a new era for South African golf as the Southern Guards GC is unveiled on the Live Tour. Let's find out more just before 7:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Warning, a reminder of heavy rains and localised flooding across much of Mpumalanga and Limpopo. Please take it nice and easy if it's been raining for a while where you are. Those rivers are rapidly rising and very dangerous to cross. Durban looking okay this morning. The stationary truck at Cato Ridge is being cleared away. If you're going Pietermaritzburg, Durban on the commute, it's fine. Joburg's Mike 1, heavy today from Boysons to Braamfontein, and 1 through Diepkloof to Uncle Charlie's looking fairly busy as well. And Cape Town just backlog of traffic inbound on the N2 moving slowly through towards Jan Smuts Drive. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
Find your fix in 2026 with
This is SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. This is SAFM.
Just tell me about how this concert series fits in with what you are trying to do with these young people. After 7, we've got lots of ground to cover, so let's get straight into it then for the second hour of the show. There are 10 days of water left in the Akkerkloof Dam if current usage patterns continue. And that's an important clarification because it does not mean the town of Knysna as a whole will be out of water, will be without water in 10 days, as some reports suggested yesterday. What it does signal, though, is a serious emergency for one of the town's key storage dams, already sitting at critically low levels and central as it is to the local supply system. The municipality says it is tightening restrictions, repairing leaks, and activating contingency plans to stretch remaining resources and safeguard essential services. Let's hear more about that. I'm joined by Dr. Lulamile Mapoloba, who is the municipal manager for the Knysna local municipality. Good morning to you, Doc, and thank you for your time. Let's start with that clarity. Flashing headlines yesterday, Knysna only has 10 days of water left. You will run out of water in 10 days. Is that factual? Is that accurate? And if it isn't, what is the actual position?
No, it is. Thank you very much, Thulasizwe, and Happy New Year to you and your listeners of SAFM. It is not accurate. What is actually accurate is what you said in your intro, that the storage capacity of the dam that we have, if the rain does not come, and if everything else stops, if there is no water, we can be able to supply water to that dam, Akkerkloof Dam, for 10 days. So this is what it means. On ideally we should be having around the 30 days of supply of storage capacity within that particular dam. So it will become so low that there must be a behavioral change in terms of residents, in terms of businesses, and municipalities.
Yeah, that clarity notwithstanding, the situation does continue to be an emergency, doesn't it? For instance, locate that the percentage and the levels of Akerkloof within the context of what other supply sources you actually have in the town and where those stand.
Yes, there is lot of work that is currently being done with the support of provincial government of the Western Cape through MEC Brazil and also through the Department of Water and Sanitation. There is drilling of boreholes that is currently taking place. And also ensuring that those boreholes that have ceased to function, they are made to be functional. We've also tapped into the PG Bison system. We're expecting to sign a service level agreement today with PG Bison so that we can also tap into their own boreholes. We are also long term Department of Water and Sanitation of building a dam at Niger. At the moment, we don't have a dam that we can be able to be proud of. But also, we are working around the transport dam to ensure that if there is rain on Thursday, as it is predicted, we are able to hold on with that rain so that it can be pumped into Akerkloof. The excess water can be pumped into Akerkloof. So we are putting in sensors. Garden Route Municipality has supplied about 300 sensors that will be put around the well there so that that water cannot be lost into the system. We are also working around the repairing it, rapid response to deal with this. So what is critical is that everything change their behavior. They must use their water.
Yeah.
They must not water their gardens. They must not cover clothes for the moment so that we can be able to use whatever drops that we get. So there are a lot of plans that we are putting in place to ensure. Actually, we are working around getting around 12 to 13 megaliters of water into the system on top of the current. For the current consumption is 12 megaliters. We are getting the same so that it can be able to survive.
But how much runway do you still have on that? Grapple with the for me, please. Grapple with the current situation as you face it and the usage patterns. What do you say to those who are concerned that you may ultimately come to day zero in Knysna?
Yes, we are saying that they must change their behavior. If they fail to change their behavior, we are going to enforce tariffs. We are going to punish them. We are going to show that if we find somebody misusing water, that person is heavily punished because it's affecting all the residents. Already, our law enforcement officers are out there ensuring that we are looking into the usage patterns. We are also, our finance department has activated to ensure that we were able to, our water meters were able to go out, read meters, see where there is an excessive use of water, and then if we discover that, we punish quite heavily so that everybody can change and understand the situation that we are in. Because we don't want to be in a situation where we get to day zero due to our misbehavior. You know, it must happen because of the natural features of drought, not because we are failing to do things that are simple that we should be doing.
All right. Thank you for that, Dr. Lulamile Mapoloba, Municipal Manager for the Knysna local municipality. And in fact, in what could perhaps be a parade of the doctors, let's turn to another doctor, Dr. Sean Phillips, who is Director General for the Department of Water and Sanitation. Good morning to you, Doc. Let's start with your position in this situation and in this response to Knysna and the garden route in general. How concerned are you about the dam levels, Akerkloof, but also about the usage and consumption patterns and what they spell for the sustainability of water supply in those areas?
Good morning, Thulasizwe, and good morning to all your listeners. We agree with everything that you correct. As he indicated, we are working closely with him in the Joint Operations Committee, which is in place to ensure to the situation. This is a crisis situation. There's a very severe localized in the Knysna area. It probably meets the criteria hydrologically of being the worst drought that we've had in 100 years, or 1 in 100 years drought in the area. So it's a very unusually severe drought. The municipal manager is correct when he says that they are putting in place contingency plans to make sure that we don't reach the situation where there's absolutely no water in Knysna and people don't even have any water to drink. That won't happen because as a last resort, if the upper Fluid dam becomes completely empty and the water flow in the Knysna River slows to an almost standstill, we have contingency plans to suck water from other municipalities in the Garden Route to Knysna as a last resort. We won't get to the situation where there's no water whatsoever in Knysna.
Yeah.
But it's going to be very expensive to do that, and the
Yes.
amount of water that we can suck to Knysna will be limited. So, to avoid that situation, we need to do all the things that the ministers, everybody needs to play a role.
Yeah.
Municipality needs to reduce the leak. River in your water is about 50%. As with many other municipalities, it's collected years. Part of the leak distribution system is unacceptable. I mean, I'm saying that they are focusing on repairing that. It should have happened a lot earlier. We wouldn't be in such a desperate situation with this 1 in 100 year drought if the municipal distribution system had been maintained over the past few decades.
Should the municipality then shoulder some of the responsibility, not for the drought, but for failing to do some of the work you are describing, maintaining some of the systems such that when there is a drought, those systems are able to hold and not have that those leaks that you're talking about, non-revenue water?
Absolutely, and I think from hearing what the municipal manager said, I think they do shoulder responsibility because he said that they are paying attention and ramping up the maintenance program now with a focus on reducing the leaks.
This plan that is almost like a doomsday plan, and I don't mean to dramatize it and overstate the case, but basically a last resort plan, the trucking of water. It sounds quite a dramatic solution that I do imagine you don't want to reach at all. You'd only do it as a last resort. What does it say about the need for more infrastructure, bulk water infrastructure, which is your area of responsibility? We're talking about Akkerkloof, but this drought affects the broader region of the Garden Route. What do you say about the building of more bulk water infrastructure, dams and the likes in regions such as the Garden Route? Has that been done enough, or could we do more?
It's a very good question, Thulasizwe. The first part of the answer is that legally and constitutionally, it's not correct to say that it's the responsibility of the national government or DWS to build national water resource infrastructure. In terms of the Constitution and the National Water Act, anyone in South Africa can build a dam. The vast majority of the dams in South Africa are owned by the private sector. They've been built by the agriculture sector and the mining sector. Our role as the national department is to provide licenses to ensure that when the dams are built, that they're built in a sustainable way in terms of how much water they capture, and also that they're built properly, structurally, so that they'll be safe. In the Western Cape in particular, many of the municipalities have their own, including the dam that's empty and nice, and many other municipalities, including the city of Cape Town in the Western Cape, have also built their own dams, and they got licenses from dams. But the economy is a scale by the national department building the very big dam, opposed to everybody else smaller dams. The national government has built a dam, and that's over the last 150 years across the country. And we do constantly engage in national water resource planning, dam construction. As the municipal manager indicated, we are engaged in feasibility studies for long-term for that area for constructing physical dams to meet the needs in the long term. But it's a very important point for the CSA is that the country can't afford to build sufficient storage capacity to make sure that there's enough water to continuously supply the normal amount of water, even in the most extreme drought conditions. That would be prohibitively. I don't think that there's any country in the world that does it. We build storage capacity to provide a continuous, reliable supply for the normal situation. But you can't have storage capacity to deal with 1 in 100 year situations like we're in now. The way we need to deal with that is to be prepared in terms of alternative sources like boreholes, seawater desalination in the coastal areas, and also put in place
Dr. Phillips,
when they have
before we part ways, I do need to ask you this. 1 in 100 years drought in those areas, the Garden Route, Knysna, and the likes. In your assessment of where we are with this situation, does it qualify to be declared a state of disaster? I know that legislation resides in another department, but are you at a point where you feel you can make the case to Minister Hlabisa, to the other departments and partner departments, that actually this should be a disaster that is declared?
Yes, and I believe the provincial government is in the process of doing that. In the process to ask it to be, and that will provide access to Knysna for particular disaster measures.
All right, let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you for your time. Dr. Sean Phillips is Director General at the Department of Water and Sanitation.
What if your child...
The reality is that private funders do not just thoughtlessly throw their resources around.
It is one thing to get a backtrack like that for a finance guy, hey?
Somebody just WhatsApped me to say that she has a daughter who has hearing loss.
Corruption in South Africa has reached disgraceful levels.
First things first, let's get to my daily that's my point feature. So, did you see Cristiano Ronaldo cry yesterday?
Theme, social issue that has been raised by Professor William Gumede in Daily Maverick. In a society, he says, in a society where families are frayed and communities bear the scars of inequality, educators today are being asked to do far more than teach from a textbook. Professor Gumede argues in a thought-provoking opinion piece in Daily Maverick that in a failing state like ours, teachers must step into roles that include mentor, counselor, and moral guide, shaping not just learners' minds, but their character and capacity to participate in the economy, community, and civic life. He joins me now to take that theme forward. Good morning to you, Prof, and thank you for your time. I got the sense that you were addressing this issue, of course, in the wake of the matric results having come out and the career choices that these young people face, the economy that they are stepping into, but also equally important, the familial, lay of the land, the situation as regard the broken families that we come from. What's the essence of the point you are making about the role of teachers in that context?
No, good morning, and good morning to your listeners, and I wish everyone in the country very, very good 2026. Yes, I in our near failed state, it is now absolutely critical teachers almost a parenting role or steering role. So it's a role that goes beyond the traditional teaching. I would call it almost a developmental role, so developmental teaching, where a teacher does not only teach content, but also be almost parent, parents, and then also the guide beyond the textbook, but also role model how to behave. Our society now coming from apartheid, through trauma, and then now in the post-1994 the failed state, ordinary kids often do not get to know how to, for example, how to behave as good, civic-minded citizens of, how to behave in a democracy, and just normal sort of behavior because, families are fractured in the community. They are very toxic role models, and the teachers will have to do that in our case.
And before we take the theme forward about the role of the teachers, just settle this for me. In terms of that continuum and spectrum of failing state, failed state, broken society, where do you locate us? And why do you? I heard you a few minutes ago using the term failed state, and some will jump up and say, we're not there. There are signs that are troubling. There are signs of failure, but it would be inaccurate to call us a failed state. But what's your sense? Where do you land on that continuum?
We are a near failed state, and in many of our municipalities, states, we may not have a bill, we have a failed state. Just think about it. Last year, the Department of Education inspected 500 schools, and that would be schools and townships, the rural areas. It did not have mathematics. How in any modern society where if you want to prosper as an individual and as a country, there has to be a majority of mathematics education. No society currently, in our modern times and in the future, can prosper without a schooling system where more than 60% of children and high school do mathematics. So, those kind of numbers are, failed state numbers in one education department. We know most of our municipalities are not working. They are actually failed stage, but at the municipal level.
Yeah. So it was important for me to say that because I could foresee a situation where later on, when we're having the debates, people keep, coming back to that point. Having clarified that, and you stating that position, what in the current context, because when I read what you wrote, it sounds as if it calls for an activist individual teacher. So all individual teachers deciding that, the time and the moment calls for us to be activists, to be the change makers and leaders, in essence, in society. In terms of the esteem of the teaching profession, the investment in the resources that enable that passion to flow through, how are we doing? Because, as much as you will have individuals who are activists, who will, want to grab the issue by the scruff of its neck, the resources continue to be an issue. We keep hearing about austerity measures and how they are biting into the education system.
In this context now, we really absolutely need to get teachers to step up. We do have teachers that are doing it, but then we also have teachers who are not doing it, who are just there to get a paycheck. And then unfortunately, we also have trade unions. Our trade unions also need to become less of position, Thulasizwe era opposition type of trade unions, but become builders and institutional builders and almost become developmental in a new way, developmental by focusing on the child, particularly on the black child, and see to do more than the constraints that is available. It's going to be very, very important. We all know in our own individual lives, and in my own life in the 1980s, it's been teachers that played a really peaceful contribution during resource constraints and so on. So we almost now need to get more teachers developmental, and they take their role much more passionately seriously. Because we also, we've been talking now about The third part is parts of society is also failed. So we got a combination of good things. A near failed society. What I mean by near failed society, where our communities are broken, our family structures are broken. For the majority,
Yeah.
meaning they won't get in homes the kind of counseling, the kind of advice, just simple advice how subjects to schools, for example, to become competitive in the economy. And right now, also because of the near failed state, that near failed state has said children should have mathematics literacy, or they must pass with a 50%. So both of those two things, if a child has those type of conditions, there's absolutely no way that that child is possible. So now the teacher will have to intervene at the school level. An activist or developmental teacher will say, no, in my classroom, I'm absolutely going to make certain that most of the children do pure mathematics and that they pass, above.
All right, Prof. I've got to thank you for that. That's Professor William Kumete, Associate Professor in the School of Governance at the University of the Witwatersrand. Let's go to Ann Musa on standby with news headlines.
Thanks, Thulas. Good morning. In the headlines, former Acting National Police Commissioner Humutso Patlane will today testify before the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee probing national security concerns. The committee is investigating allegations of criminal infiltration, corruption and political interference in the criminal justice system made by the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. The Cape Winelands District Municipality Fire Services say they are still battling to contain the fire at Wimmershoek in Franschhoek in the Boland. Today marks the 8th day of active firefighting to extinguish the fire. And the South African Weather Services has issued an orange level 9 warning as the rains continue to wreak havoc in the Vembe, Mopani and parts of Sekhukhune districts in the Limpopo province. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Flooding around the Kruger National Park area with an alert for travellers heading into the park just to check before you arrive as to whether the planned route that you're going to go into your camp or accommodation area is open or whether you need to detour. But through parts of Mpumalanga and Limpopo, we are just generally seeing rising river levels. So please be very cautious and careful. Stay away from crossing flooded rivers. There is so much water coming down the rivers, you could end up in all sorts of trouble. Other issues we're watching this morning, coming out of Shoshanguve, heading towards Pretoria, crash just before Block XX, so that's heavy. The alternative M32, the Stoatpine Road, or M35, heading down towards Onderstepoort out of Shoshanguve, that's quite heavy as well. Route 1 through Midrand, not looking too bad. I've certainly seen it worse. A lot of pressure on the M1, Devlin through Deepcliff down towards Uncle Charlie's side this morning. Durban, Pietermaritzburg, if you're on that run through this morning, it looks good, no major problems. There are delays between Hillcrest and Kloof on the M13, some delays towards Kloof coming into that Gillets area. And Cape Town, Bosmansdam Road, heavy down to Montague Drive, behind that the N7 backing up from Goodwood, and lots of traffic on the N2 highway this morning from Langa all the way through to Hospital Bend. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning to you, Zai. Chicago Fire is on fire in snapping up South African players, are they not?
Hey, listen, yes, they are definitely adding South African heat to the team. It may be the windy city as they known, but great things in store for this young man. And he's been touted as a wonderful, described actually as one of South Africa's most exciting young attackers by the head coach of Chicago Fire, who's Greg Berhalter. So we're really looking forward to seeing this young man bring the fire to Chicago. And it's the South African winger, Puso Ditejane. He's from Cape Galaxy, but he's on to now a 4-year deal. He'll be heading to Chicago with an option, though, to extend all the way to 2031. So he does follow a fellow South African, Mbetezeli Bokazi, as the Fire is preparing for their MLS season opener, and that will be happening next month In the meantime, Manchester United have appointed Michael Carrick as caretaker head coach till the end of the season. The former midfielder returns to the dugout ahead of Saturday's derby against Manchester City following Ruben Amorim's dismissal earlier this month. Let's bring it back to AFCON with Wilfred Ndidi suspended. Nigeria are looking to reshuffle their midfield for tonight's AFCON semi-final against the host Morocco. Head coach Eric Stel says there's no panic in the Super Eagles camp, insisting every match has been a challenge at this tournament.
Algeria was the biggest test. Morocco is the biggest test. Every game is the biggest test for this team because the expectation is so big. So we are ready for this game, for all of these games that we play in this tournament. We try to play every game like the last, and we will give everything. We gave everything. So now, like I said just earlier, I have to check my player, how they are physically, because, we play 2 days before. So we have to rest, and after, I will judge how is my team, and we can think about the game plan.
That's the Nigeria head coach Eric Shell here on the morning brief. Let's head out to rugby. And there's been exciting things for Springbok World Cup winner Jean Klein is heading to England. The 32-year-old lock has signed with Gloucester for next season after a decade at Munster, where he won the URC title. That's your sport. We'll tackle more top of the hour. I'm Zaikan.
The business update on SAFM.
Darling, good morning to you once again. This is where the teacher in you will have to come forth, okay? Professor William Gumede
Okay,
was
let's do
talking
it.
about teachers and, leading in
Yes.
society. So lead. The Reserve Bank, you're telling us, will review the prime lending rate after 2
Mhm.
decades. Separate that and explain it as simple as you can from what it normally does in
Yeah.
relation to the repurchase rate.
Yes. Now, maybe let's explain what the prime rate
Yes,
is, right? So the prime
absolutely.
rate is the rate at which banks use to borrow money. So you might see on your bond, on your car financing, it's prime plus 10% plus 2%, etc., etc. And that currently sits at 10.5%. Whereas the repo rate, the one that CARB cuts rates, um, that is sitting at 6.75%. So what the SOG is rethinking is changing prime rate, and that has potential implications for how banks price everything from home loans, car financing, to even credit cards. Bloomberg report stated that the central bank confirmed it is reviewing the prime lending rate, long-standing benchmark set at 3.5 percentage points above the repo rate. No timeline has been set. As yet. The prime rate, of course, underpins trillions of rands in bank lending and has remained unchanged for more than decades. And critics argue it has outlived its usefulness, with banks already pricing credit based on risk, funding costs, and client profiles rather than the reference rate itself. While any reform is unlikely to transform borrowing costs overnight, economists say narrowing the gap between prime and policy rate could offer short-term relief to households and businesses by, of course, lowering debt servicing costs. Now, the trade-off of this move will be ensuring bank profitability and financial stability are not undermined, particularly as lenders would need to reprice existing contracts if changes are, of course, implemented.
Yeah, this is so rare. I didn't even know that they could do that.
Right? Yeah.
Tinker with the prime lending rate. I thought theirs is just the repurchase rate, and that's that. Shows you how much I knew about these things before you schooled us this morning. Let's talk about South Africa being off the EU's high risk list.
Yes, so Tulas, many are saying this move marks a practical turning point for the financial sector rather than a symbolic win. From the end of January, EU banks will no longer be obliged to apply extra layers of scrutiny to transactions involving SA institutions, easing administrative costs and shortening processing times that had become a drag on cross-border deals. Now, the decision follows SA's exit from the FATF grey list late last year and aligns the EU with the UK, which has already relaxed its own restrictions. Together, the steps restore the country standing in key financial corridors at a time when global capital is increasingly selective. But the reprieve comes with conditions. Treasury has warned that the reforms which unlock these removals must now translate into stronger investigations and prosecutions. The next FATF review next year, maintaining credibility will matter as much as regaining it.
All right, last in Dowling. In fact, before I move on from that, I need to mention that we will be speaking to independent analyst Kaya Sitole at about 8:45 this morning on that very move, South Africa's removal from the EU's high-risk list. Lastly, the markets. How are we looking?
Asian stock markets are trading mostly higher, boosted by the continuing record run by Japan's Nikkei. That market rally has been driven by speculation that Prime Minister Takaichi may dissolve Japan's lower house of parliament at the start of the ordinary parliament session later this month. A move, economists say, could trigger an early election. Stateside futures in the red as economists price hold at the Fed's next meeting. Here at home, sentiment remains upbeat due to higher commodity prices, and that's for the all share 0.6% higher. The rand also benefiting, trading stronger at 16.36 to the greenback this hour. Over in oil markets, prices steadying this morning at $63.84 per barrel. That market keeping a close eye on developments in Iran and how that could affect nation's oil.
All right, thank you for that, Dowling. We'll talk to you in the third hour of the show, just after 8:30.
This is SAFM.
Music never sleeps, and neither do we.
Official reporting of The Citizen on this story. There's a theory being floated in some quarters of the security industry and farming communities that repeated failed fires in parts of the country, including recently in the Eastern and Western Cape, Southern Cape areas, may not be entirely random or accidental. Some specialists believe low-tech but effective ignition devices are being used to start fires with a delay, and this could be more than just mischief. It is speculated, it might be intimidation, disruption of rural economies, and in a few instances, even economic sabotage amid rising social instability and crime pressures. Let's hear more about this. One of the voices quoted in that conversation is Jimmy Root, who is a director at Gauntlet Security Solutions, GSS, but also a security and explosives mitigation specialist. Good morning to you, Jimmy, and thank you for your time. Are you settled in your mind that we've seen enough by way of evidence, anecdotal as it may be, that there have been instances where these fires that we've seen rage in parts of the country were started deliberately, even before we get to talking about the motives behind that?
Yeah, I'm very so concerned about it, and for a long time, many of us have actually said the same thing, but we've never really had a voice to raise our opinion. And but over the last about 6 months to 12 months, we've all been given the opportunity to raise this awareness, and it is a serious threat. While you're talking about this particular device, while we go along, I'd like to include even petrol bombs. People don't realize the impact petrol bombs has in South Africa. Just a quick one, in 2021, the riots, the weapon of choice used during the riots was the petrol bomb, and that caused devastation. So it is a serious problem in South Africa.
But explain that a bit more. We don't have riots as we speak in the country. We don't have that kind of uprising and instability. We have instability that has to do with the fundamentals of our society, but nothing that is actively burning, if I use that word, by way of people on the streets rioting and pillaging and destroying things. So what makes us believe that there could be forces at play in these felt fires?
If I could just give a big picture, you said there's no sort of large groups of people roaming around destroying things. I would say if you do research, you will see that billions is lost every year in South Africa to petrol bomb attacks, etc., on whether it's businesses, whether it's farms, etc., etc. So that is there. I just don't know why the media actually hasn't raised this issue. For example, if I had to say to you, how many bomb threats do we have in South Africa per annum? I'm sure you'll say to me, oh, maybe 10, 20. And I'll say, no, there are many thousands of bomb threats every single year in South Africa. 35% is negative, but that still has devastating cost us billions of rands every year because of those negative bomb threats. But there are still thousands of bomb threats in South Africa. But bomb threats, I include petrol bombs as well. It's just never reported.
Yeah, there's a good reason editorially for that, but I don't want to get into that. But because of time, Jimmy, I do want to ask you about the other theory being floated, the theory around cable theft, and just the damage to the infrastructure of Eskom triggering some of these fires. How much credence do you lend to that theory?
The colleagues of mine in the field, they also say to you as well that that is a huge problem, cable theft and the other kind of structure elements that's part of our infrastructure. And that is seen as has been a big part. They say like 25% at least is the result of those destructive thefts that are taking place. Definitely.
Yeah. So lastly then, what's the best we can do in responding to this theory of fires being deliberately set with these devices that you just described? What's our best response?
No, it's especially you saw that delayed device. It's so difficult to track that kind of almost proactively. It's almost impossible to do that one. We just have to be more vigilant and more communication with each other and a better understanding of how the things are taking place. And then the people, because it's all quite contextual, with all the relevant stakeholders in those areas have to come up with more proactive measures. But big failure, and I'm going to make it a very national point of failure over here. And I'll say to you, for example, South Africa doesn't have national bomb safety standards. When I talk about bomb safety standards, again, I'm including even petrol bombs, a bomb. So there's no guidance given to any employer on the ground as to the dangers and how to mitigate. None exists in South Africa. One of the few countries in the world that has no guidance from government.
All right. Thank you for that. We may want to pick up a broader conversation about explosives, their availability, policies, as well as practice in trying to, police that area. Certainly in the wake of some of the discoveries that police have been highlighting in the last few weeks as they've been carrying out operations. Jimmy Roth is director at Gauntlet Security Solutions, GSS, a security and explosives mitigation specialist.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Yes, good morning. Just a reminder, if you're driving parts of Limpopo and Mpumalanga that have had sustained rain lately, we are looking at some very, very rapidly rising rivers, loads of flooding, quite a few road closures as well. There's a big route in and out of Hoedspruit, the R527 between the R531 and Hoedspruit. That section of roadway is currently closed. A lot of flooding inside Kruger Park as well. We would advise that if you are on your way to have a stay at Kruger or just going through, just make sure you're checking ahead with the accommodation area, if you like. They would know whether you can get straight through on your preferred route or whether you're going to have to take some sort of alternative route and what that means in terms of travel time impacts. But a lot of rain, a lot of concern about flooding and road dangers through parts of those provinces. Joburg side, the N3 pretty heavily backed up north and south, series of breakdowns going southbound and a crash as well. This is all between Modderfontein Road and Galuli, so that's jam-packed. Northbound from Van Buren, having a look at all that going up to Linksfield Road's fairly heavy. Very interesting for N1 motorists this morning. It's a pretty clear run through mid-Ram. There's a lot of traffic off the highway, around schools obviously, but the highway itself is fine. The exception there being the Pretoria section, which is still very busy. There's a crash scene just after the R21, so between R21 and Botha Avenue, and that traffic coming out of Pretoria backlogging all the way through to Atterbury Road. At this stage, been a good run through Cliffdale and Peacevale and Key Ridge if you're on your way to Durban or to Pietermaritzburg. The N3 looking good. Not so good on the M13. A crash near Maytime. Stays heavy coming through from Hillcrest as you come on from Old Main all the way through almost to Kloof. You'll be stuck in that traffic backlog. And Cape Town this morning, the main road from Muizenberg through St James in towards Cork Bay, extra heavy. A lot of traffic on routes like Spine Road at Jafta Masamola and Khayelitsha, Spine Road at the bottom of the Mitchell's Plain. A lot of school traffic there this morning, causing some delays, and big traffic on the Steenberg Road at the Redham Circle. Both directions jam-packed. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Get Barter school shoes at Spar for 75 Rand when you spend 350 Rand or more. And swipe.
I owe myself in she got the shamatana Shilo inni makanana Shilo inni makanana Shilo inni makanana she got the shamatana Yes makanana Yes makanana Yes makanana Yes makanana she got the shamatana Shilo inni makanana Shilo inni makanana Shilo inni makanana Shila pishama jari Ilesh makanana Ilesh makanana Ilesh makanana Ilesh makanana Shila pishama jari Ilesh makanana Ilesh makanana Ilesh makanana Ilesh makanana
This is SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. This is SAFM.
Just tell me about how this concert series fits in with what you are trying to do with these young people.
The reality is that private funders do not just thoughtlessly throw their resources around.
It is one thing to get a backtrack like that for a finance guy, hey?
Somebody just WhatsApped me to say that she has a daughter who has hearing loss.
Corruption in South Africa has reached disgraceful levels.
First things first, let's get to my daily that's my point feature. So, did you see Cristiano Ronaldo?
Industry leaders and law enforcement acknowledge that sustained collaboration, intelligence-led operations, and strict enforcement of legislation are essential to maintaining and accelerating this downward trend. Let's focus on it for a little bit. I'm joined by Dr. Alice Murray, who is Incident and Analytics Manager at the Cash in Transit Association of South Africa, SITASA. Good morning to you, Doc, and thank you for your time. So just before we delve into how we sustain a downward trend, we move from the acceptance that there is a downward trend. Is there?
Good morning. Yes, indeed. We see a decrease of 14% when we compare 2025 full year with 2024. But when we compare it with 2017, when we had the highest number of cash in transit robberies, there's a 51% increase. Decrease, sorry, my apology. It's a decrease from 2017 to 2025. And then since the establishment of SITASA, the decrease is 42% between 2021 and 2025. We also see a decrease in the Eastern Cape, 60%, and in KwaZulu-Natal, a 14% decrease. So indeed, we see the figures enforcing the deduction that there is slight decrease, but the concern remains, as you said.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get to the concern in a moment, but to what do you attribute this decrease? The numbers you released late last year talked about a total of 180 cash in transit robberies recorded between January and December 21. What do you attribute the decrease?
So the decrease has been affected by arrest. So it's kind of a layered approach. So which is so effective is successful arrest and conviction. So dealing with the offender, because we are really troubled by repeat offending, and offenders that's out on bail and on parole, they are partaking in this crime type. So that was the effect that we saw after the arrest and conviction. And the cash in transit industry also focused on the vehicles. Employees are very important for the cash in transit industry, and proper training, vetting to address, for example, inside information leakages, as well as the community that stands together. One concern I must raise is the looting of crime scenes. And that is something that we really need to look at, because we see also an increase of bystanders being injured.
Yeah, in fact, say a bit more about that, because it talks to your concerns that say while there's a decline, it continues. CITs continue to be a serious safety and security issue in the country. I imagine part of it, does it have to do with that, the role of bystanders whenever these incidents happen, but also the degree of violence that occurs? And I imagine that provinces like Gauteng and KZN continue to worry you.
Yes, you're quite right. Our high-risk provinces remain Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal, as well as the Eastern Cape, although we see a decrease. But the other provinces are also at risk because cash in transit robbers commit their crime across provincial borders. So they are not strict to one province or one area. So they move from one province to other provinces. And as the people being arrested, there's some newcomers or new groups formed. The concern about the looting of cash in transit crime scene is because it results in injuries and deaths of bystanders. So when there's a crime scene and the community also now becomes the enemy, to put it in that way, as they storm to to the crime scenes and then try to grab some money. And the fact that looting a crime scene is not free money, it's a crime because you put the lives of the CRT employees at risk, but also your own life. And if I can just give a statistic to show there is when we talk about the bystanders, how the bystanders that innocent when these incidents happen, it's more than 100% when they are injured or shot at. So that's a real concern for us bystanders. Sometimes they just observe the situation, and therefore we also make use of our social media where we share tips to the community how to safeguard themselves.
All right. Let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you for raising these issues. Quite important in terms of the safety and security situation, the overall safety and security situation in our country. That's Dr. Alice Murray, Incident and Analytics Manager at the Cash and Transit Association of South Africa. Let's go to N. Musa with the latest news.
Outsurance is in the business of saving you money on your car insurance premium. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754.
In our top stories, Patlane to testify before Parliament's ad hoc committee and a level 9 weather warning issued for Limpopo. Good morning. Former Acting National Police Commissioner Humutso Patlane will today testify before the Parliamentary ad hoc committee probing national security concerns. The committee is investigating allegations of criminal infiltration, corruption and political interference in the criminal justice system made by the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. Patlane is the first witness to appear before the committee this year. Marisa Whitehead reports.
His evidence is expected to test allegations made by Police Ministry Chief of Staff Cedric Nkabinde. Nkabinde told the committee last year that there was a coordinated plot to block Patlane's permanent appointment as National Commissioner. He alleged that a so-called Patlane task team led by private investigator Paul O'Sullivan worked to discredit Patlane through the media and IPID search and seizure operations. Nkabinde claimed the group included former IPID head Robert McBride, some members of the DA, individuals linked to AfriForum and a journalist. Patlane served as Acting National Police Commissioner from 2015 to 2017 before being suspended on misconduct allegations dating back to 2009.
The Cape Winelands District Municipality Fire Services say they are still battling to contain the fire at Vemershoek and Franschhoek in the Boland. Today marks the 8th day of active firefighting to extinguish the fire. Cape Winelands District Municipality Fire Services spokesperson Aniska Root says fire lines continue to burn in dangerous and inaccessible areas. Root says several flare-ups occurred during the night. She says the cooler weather has, however, helped suppress the fires.
These fire lines are being closely monitored and will remain the focus of suppression efforts when conditions allow. All teams remain on high alert for structure protection. Fresh teams will be deployed this morning to continue active firefighting at strategic locations, while monitoring and mopping up operations are ongoing in areas where the fire has been contained.
The Basic Education Minister, Siviwe Kwagube, and the Northwest Education MEC, Viola Mutsume, will this morning visit Sinolo Primary School. The purpose for the visit is to kickstart the 2026 Back to School program and to usher in the first day of the 2026 academic calendar. Spokesperson for the department, Terence Kala, says they will also welcome learners back to school, with special focus on Grade R and Grade 1 learners who will be attending school for the very first time.
Now, the visit underscores the importance of early learning as the foundation for lifelong educational success. During the engagements with educators, the minister will encourage teachers to be bolder, more ambitious, and more innovative in 2026 as the education system continues to focus on improving learning outcomes and preparing learners for a rapidly changing world.
The South African Weather Services has issued an orange level 9 warning as the rains continue to wreak havoc in the Vembe, Mopani and parts of Sekhukhune districts in the Limpopo province. The Provincial Education Department has announced schools will not open today in high-risk areas to protect learners and teachers. Human Settlements MEC Basikopo Makamo held an emergency meeting to coordinate assistance to disaster victims last night. Department spokesperson Amos Pachos says a follow-up meeting will be held today.
The meeting was to coordinate needed assistance after the South African Weather Services had issued a Level 9 warning that is causing havoc mainly in Mopani and Vembe districts. The MEC has requested all the mayors working with disaster officials from the districts to do costed preliminary reports on the damages that the rain have caused that must be submitted urgently to the Provincial Disaster Management Center.
And finally, US President Donald Trump says his administration is going to revoke the citizenship of any naturalized immigrant from Somalia or any other country who is convicted of what he termed defrauding American citizens. Speaking in Detroit, he warned that those found guilty will be sent back to where they came from. The comments are his latest attack on the Somali American community. The BBC's Nada Tofik reports.
The situation in Minneapolis is still tense after an ICE agent shot and killed a woman last week. President Donald Trump raised the political temperature even further on Tuesday by doubling down on his attacks on the Somali community in the city. He said any immigrant from Somalia or anywhere else who is convicted of fraud would see their citizenship revoked. He said they would be thrown in jail and sent back to where they came from. He previously said he did not want Somalis in the country because they contribute nothing and their country stinks.
Recapping the top story, former acting National Police Commissioner Khumutso Patlane will today testify before the Parliamentary Ad hoc Committee probing national security concerns. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Wondering why 45-year-old Nivan has such a big smile lately?
Outsurance. Save me so much money. 461 Rand.
That's right. With Outsurance, Nivan saves an amazing 461 Rand a month on his 2025 VWT Cross. And after 3 claim-free years, he gets an out bonus.
So much money.
How much money could Outsurance save you? Get a quote now. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Licensed insurer in FSP. TCs and information online.
And it's a very good morning to you in your SFM sports headlines. It's the Mamelodi Sundowns underlining their determination to defend their Betway Premiership crown, and will also bring you golf. South Africa's Live Golf team has transformed into Southern Guards GC. Let's find out more just before 8:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Just a reminder about the heavy rain and the localised flooding across parts of Limpopo and Mpumalanga. There's some real fears over safety for motorists with extremely and rapidly rising rivers. So some of those high bridges, you'll be okay, but those low-level bridges, if there's water crossing them, if they're flooded, please don't cross them. You never know what's coming down that river. It may well just sweep you away. Some real concern through parts that have been experiencing heavy rains. Joburg N3 badly backed up this morning. Modderfontein Road to Galulis, both directions. Couple of crash scenes and motorists having a look at it. The N1 south out of Pretoria is heavy. A crash between the R21 and Boerta Avenue. It's a big queue all the way back to Atterbury Road and looking really bad. Durban's M13 from Hillcrest going towards Kloof, still being held by a crash near Maytime. That's quite a heavy queue. There's also a lot of congestion on the N3 as you go from Pavilion down to Paradise Valley. Some big traffic on your way in towards Pinetown this morning. Cape Town crash N1 inbound at Monte Vista. That's very slow going. And if you're coming through Old Paarl Road, Brackenfell, some roadworks there near Windmill Street, pushing queues back to Kraaifontein. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
All right, good morning and welcome to the third hour of the morning brief on SAFM 104 to 107. It is absolutely great to be in your company on this Wednesday. I do want to read a few of your messages before I go to some of your calls that are already coming through. Let me start with one from Thulasizwe, who's reflecting on the conversation we had with the Portfolio Committee Chairperson on Communications and Digital Technologies, Kusela Diko, regarding Starlink and the criticisms leveled at her by, my broadband in particular, in an article that was written. Tulani Dasa says, this is a deeply compromised character with a COVID-19 cloud hanging above her head. Diko's argument that the 30% rule inherently benefits disadvantaged communities is not supported by the real economic outcomes Triple BEE has produced. The rule benefits a class of ANC-connected few far more than ordinary, historically disadvantaged South Africans. Diko frames maintaining the ownership requirement as protecting transformation, but blocking new connectivity options like Starlink actually harms the very communities she claims to protect, says Tulani Dasa. Someone else, Wade in Joburg, says, here we go again. They are playing politics in technology. Starlink must come here in South Africa. We are tired of expensive costs. This will benefit poor people. They will bring politics. We are always behind. Lesotho is ahead of us, even in network. And that message coming through from Wade, as I said, in Joburg. Then someone else says there are matriculants currently in Vembe and Mopani districts in Limpopo who can't travel to Gauteng for statements collection in their respective high schools due to road closures, heavy rains. Can you please assist maybe by inquiring with Education Department nationally as to what should parents or learners do, says Makubele Dumazi, who is concerned about that situation. Lastly, this person didn't sign off. Frames it as just out of curiosity. Just out of curiosity, what was the metric pass rate in Orania? So I don't know, to be honest. But I also suspect that it's not just mere curiosity. That question is loaded. I wish you'd just unpack what's behind the question. Anyway, let's keep the conversation going. I see your calls in Tlantla. Mandla, I'll come to you in a few minutes. Do call me 086 000 2032, 086 000 2032. Your WhatsApp voice notes and messages 0614 104 107. Let's get into it. The third hour of the morning brief on this Wednesday.
I don't love school. I don't love trying to learn like everyone else learns and falling behind when I don't understand. But I do love learning. I do love working to my own schedule and getting the support when I need extra help. I do love UCT Online High School because I do love my future. Apply online before the 19th of January.
Three-time champions, the Super Eagles, mean today.
This is SAFM.
Music never sleeps, and neither do we.
In KZN. Good morning.
Good
Good morning, my brother. How are you?
My brother, I'm well. How are you?
Good. My brother, on the issue of education, let me try and enforce the up. Uh, as also, how many schools are they in?
Yes.
Yes, and what are the plans are they having to ensure that our parents don't invest it
Yes.
by that to school.
Yeah.
And the please also vibrate with how many are they employed? Are they money? Because go on my program.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
To ensure we cover here on the place on school and pass to another minister. So, I'm sure by then in our country we be able to hold it together.
Gotcha. Sandla, thank you for that. It's an important conversation in light of the scenes that we are seeing of parents, especially in Gauteng, frustrated about, accessing space. The migration patterns that append whatever plans the department may have are one thing, but there's just a sense that even the rate of building of schools in an ever growing metropolitan situation is just not keeping up. There's certainly that sense. I've gotten that sense. If you ask me to give you the evidence, obviously I can't. I don't have the facts and figures in front of me, but I just have a sense that we used to build schools at a higher rate than what we are doing now. In fact, I think the MEC in Gauteng for infrastructure development, when I last engaged, I suspect that there was an admission on that part that actually something seems to have shifted. We are slower. Austerity measures is the new buzzword, and you heard it even as the results were being announced, not only in Gauteng, across provinces. Mandla in Boksburg, good morning.
Good morning, Thulasizwe, and thank you for taking the call. Following up on Professor Gumede's conversation earlier,
yes,
about the specific strategy ahead teams, and one cannot, imagine the is in that it leads the big debate before more of it is a study, and I think I graduated from UPZ. Now she's with one of the tertiary institutions. She has come up with interesting concepts that within the scope of teachers to measures like resource pooling, working in communities of practice, outcome with study. And you listen to somebody making to tell him that approach in the campaign would now employ a quick to reach develop those. It would be interesting if you could elaborate on one. I did try to find the contact details now. I don't know if your guys the
in fact, Mandla, just share it on our WhatsApp line 0614 104 107. So 061
let me get that 061
410
4107. 4107.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Sounds
Have a
fascinating.
great day.
Thank you. You too, Mandla. That's Mandla in Boksburg. Let me go to Samuel in Cape Town. Good morning to you, Samuel. Something completely different on your mind this morning.
Morning. How are you, sir?
Very well. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm Samuel. Actually, I'm a truck driver,
Yes.
a tolling driver here in SA. We have a problem, man. It's just like we are not serious with our products, and we don't even get time to go see our families. You try to complain. It's like they are pressing you. They will dismiss you. And even the compensation, we are not even registered. Then if we talk, as we are now. So
it's
we
tough
need help,
conditions.
man.
It's tough conditions, Samuel. Just describe a bit. Just the distances covered. Is there relief, for example, if you're driving a long distance, that you'll have a second or a third driver? What's the situation?
No, actually, I'm driving alone. I'm driving from Joburg to Namibia, from Namibia to Cape Town. You'll only get, last time I checked where I'm working for, they said our basic salary was 10,500, of which the bargaining council is for 14 drivers, but it's 16,450. So it's not how it is here.
All right, Samuel, thank you for sharing that with us. It's a concerning situation. Do stay safe on the road, but that's an important conversation that you have raised. And I suppose we have to take it forward one way or another. Just the compliance with basic standards, labor standards within the trucking industry, because we don't pay attention to this situation until there's an incident, right? And then suddenly we go back and say, but how long was this person driving? When was the last time they were at home seeing their families, their own health and wellness? I remember those conversations coming up from time to time.
To all pedestrians, please.
Inzima hardwork ngivuke ekuseni ngenza uhlelo melela benza njalo I owe myself impumelelo sesiseduze nayo Shilo ini makanana Shilo ini makanana Shilo ini makanana Shigepisha machari mani Shilo ini makanana Shilo ini makanana Shilo ini makanana Shigepisha machari mani makanana Ilesh makanana Ilesh makanana Ilesh makanana Shigepisha machari mani Shilo ini makanana
It's after 8. Eskom says the country enters 2026 with its most stable and reliable electricity system in 5 years, marking a dramatic turnaround for a utility long criticized for persistent load shedding. The power utility credits improved maintenance, added generation capacity, and the implementation of its generation recovery plan for the sustained period of uninterrupted supply. Let's pick up the conversation with Eric Shanmugam, who is Eskom Engineering General Manager in the Office of the Group Executive for Generation. Good morning to you, Eric, and thank you for your time. So what does this picture of a most stable and reliable electricity system in 5 years look like?
Good morning, Thulasizwe, to you and to your listeners, and thank you for giving me the opportunity. I want to wish you well for 2026. I think it's important to sketch a little bit of a background. In around March 2023, the Generation Recovery Plan was approved by the board. It was a new board. Importantly, one of the key initiatives driven by the Energy Action Plan was to improve the generation performance. We were tasked to recover close to 6,000 megawatts onto the system. And through a focused project execution style, recovery, we've identified three main categories. We had to address issues around people, we had to address issues around the plant, and then we had to address issues around processes. Um, for me, what was we knew exactly where the problems were. We were able to dissect, confirm that there were six power stations that contributed 70% of the problems. But importantly, there were two other levers that needed to work. We had to work as a country. The one being with the appointment of the new board, appointing some of the leadership. I think this was a critical lever. So appointing the right leaders, placing them at the right power stations, and addressing the cultural issues is one of the important levers. And then lastly, quite a lot of issues that we need to address. Funding was a big issue. We got that funding. There were some procurement issues, and through the Energy Action Plan, we were able to get optimized processes together. With that, happy to report that that some 32 months ago, we were sitting around 18,000 megawatts breakdown. So we had plants we couldn't produce capacity, and hence energy availability was still around 50%. Subsequent to this program being driven to project through careful monitoring and reporting religiously on a monthly basis, I can report that as I speak to you today, the breakdowns now averaging around 9,000 means we've recovered close to, well, officially 8,000, but let's speak to today, there's 9,000 megawatts we've recovered.
Yeah.
The other important aspect which I need to highlight is that last year we committed to bringing back 2,500 megawatts. So the return of three units, Kusila Unit 6, the Medupi Unit 4, and the Kuba Unit. And for the first time through this December period, we actually had two Kuba units. So it put us in a position where we had this extra capacity. The demand dropped through industry shutting down and schools shutting down. And so then we had this 4,400. And over December, we managed the demand of close to 31 units so that we could actually maintain the reliability.
So I want to ask you about those six power stations that were central to our problems. We ended up as South Africans almost knowing them by name. You would mention and would know when you talk about your Camden and you would talk about your Hendrina. Many South Africans will be wondering what has changed, because at some point we were given the impression that forget about it. They've reached that point in their lifespan that just it's more expensive to maintain them, harder to maintain them. They break down constantly. And in fact, at some point, we'll need to mothball them. So suddenly, we see them performing. What are you doing differently that wasn't happening when we were told that we are flogging a dead horse?
Yeah, so it's an important question. And I think I'd like to use the analogy of a car. If you do the maintenance, if you have the right people doing the maintenance, if you have the right original manufacturing part, you get performance. And what has happened is the funding enabled us to get the players. We set up contracts to have the right contracts. Quite a few, contractors that didn't meet the grade but were on these plants. And through having the right funding, having the right contractors, having the right tools, and making that space. If you remember very clearly, we said that for 2 years, it's actually 32 months when I was chief executive, we had to take out this plant It was going to be longer duration. It was going to be short-term pain for long-term gain because it was against the backdrop of load. And I can tell you, if you look at places like the Hendrinas and the Camden, with the right power station managers, these old stations, although reaching end of life, compete very well with the newer stations. So it's getting back to having the right people, having the right OEMs on site, contractors, having the funding to actually be able to do it. In fact, what we now do is because our planning is 2 years on power stations, we actually
documented Zimbabwean children attempting to illegally cross the South Africa-Zimbabwe border. Former Acting National Police Commissioner Khumutso Patlane will today testify before the Parliamentary Ad hoc Committee probing national security concerns. The committee is investigating allegations of criminal infiltration, corruption and political interference in the criminal justice system made by the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. And the Cape Winelands District Municipality Fire Services say they are still battling to contain the fire at Vemershoek and Franschhoek in the Boland. Today marks the 8th day of active firefighting to extinguish the fire. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very good morning. We continue to receive just alarming visuals out of parts of Mpumalanga and Limpopo province where they've had this really sort of extended long-term heavy rainfall. The rivers are enormously flooded. It's a seasonal thing. It happens, but it just means that if you're driving through those areas, you need to be extra cautious this time of year. Some of those big bridges you'll get across okay, those big, sturdy, strong bridges, but there's a lot of roads where the bridge is like sort of river level because there's hardly any water in those rivers normally, but those rivers are just massively swollen with water, and there's more coming downstream, so you just need to be very, very cautious. If there is any water running across your road crossing, your bridge crossing, please do not get into it. You never know what's coming downstream. It could wash you away and be the end of you. It really is a very urgent alert for motorists in those northern provinces that have been experiencing that heavy rainfall. Just away from that, the crash on the M1 South coming out of Pretoria is still there between the R21 and Buerta Avenue. It's a big backlog, unfortunately, coming out of Pretoria. Queues all the way back through to Atterbury Road. The N3 South Modderfontein Road to Galuli stays busy after some crash scenes and breakdowns earlier this morning. Now, if you're coming out of Hillcrest, wanting to make your way towards Kloof, there's a really big backlog. This is the crash that's taken forever to clear near Maytime Stores. Happened quite a while ago. That M13 traffic all the way back to Old Main Road. And Cape Town, the South Peninsula is absolutely jam-packed. Trying to put our finger on why. It must be a little bit more than back to school, but Muizenberg, St James, Cork Bay, Main Road, Boys Drive, seeing some real pressure. And the other pressure points just really around the Rondebosch area. Definitely back to school traffic there, particularly Belmont Road, very slow going. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Hey Zai, good morning to you. I'm a bit thrown off, sorry. Talk to me about the January window period and the implications it has for the PSL title race.
Oh, yeah. Plus, the PSL clubs are shopping like it's payday because they didn't get the memo, that it's a quiet January, Mamelodi Sundowns and their rivals making bold moves ahead of a looming title run-in. The Brazilians have once again set the pace, strengthening the key areas as pressure points from a chasing pack determined to end their domestic dominance. Amongst the standout arrivals is Bafana Bafana defender Sulemani Indamani, who's moved from PS Galaxy adds balance and depth back, while Monopoly Select which promises that much needed activity out wide. Elsewhere, Orlando Pirates have reinforced their squad, and Second Quarter United experience as the league is shaping up be one of its most competitive finishes in years. In the meantime, back to the African continent, where Senegalese football supporters have voiced strong opposition to proposed U.S. travel restrictions ahead of the 2026 FIFA World Cup. And says that limiting entry for traveling supporters undermines the spirit of the tournament, which we believe unites nations through football. The United States is co-hosting the World Cup with Canada and Mexico. Senegal set to play two group matches in New Jersey and one in Toronto. Now, FIFA have yet to comment. Supporters hope a solution is found before kickoff in June. Cricket action, the Pearl Royals lift up Boland Park, completing their highest successful chase in SA20 history. Ruben Herman and Dan Lawrence shared a century stand before Sikandar Raza smashed a last ball six, seal a six-wicket win over the Durban Super Giants. And more cricket, SA under-19 team captain Mohamed Bulbul has stressed the importance of winning their final warm-up match against Australia today, with the World Cup in Namibia and Zimbabwe getting underway tomorrow.
The game against Australia is extremely important to get some momentum, winning ways behind us going into the first game on Friday. I think again, it's more about getting through a few checkpoints and a few things that we really want to get off as a team before we go into that first group game.
We've got more golf, this time from South Africa's Live Golf team, who officially entered a new era with the unveiling of the Southern Guards GC, formerly Singer GC. The rebrand leans into South African identity and resilience and was inspired by the philosophy of Ubuntu and symbolized by the rhino with Louis Oosthuizen, Brandon Grace, Dean Burmester, and Charles Schwartzel unchanged in the team. All eyes now
to lower maize meal and animal feed costs. Economists say it usually takes 3 to 5 months for cheaper grain to filter through to retail food prices, meaning any easing in food inflation will be gradual rather than immediate. For farmers, the picture is far tougher. While selling prices have dropped steeply, production costs have not. Slower than expected exports have also left excess maize in the system, keeping prices depressed and squeezing margins, just as growers are still dealing with weather risks and high input expenses.
So further upstream then from where sugar is planted, and I suppose it is linked in a way, the value chain of sugar production. The industry is calling for a scrapping of the health promotion levy, the so-called sugar tax.
Industry leaders, they are arguing that the levy to us is compounding the damage caused by a sharp rise in cheap sugar imports and putting the local industry under strain. SA cane growers says subsidized farm sugar is increasingly crowding out locally produced supply, even though South Africa produces enough to meet domestic demand. The group warns that the impact is being felt most in rural areas, particularly in KZN and Mpumalanga, where the sugar value chain supports more than 1 million livelihoods. While imports have surged in recent years, local growers are facing weaker demand at home as the sugar tax continues to discourage consumption. Introduced in 2018 to curb sugar intake. The levy has long been contested by the industry, which argues it has cost jobs without delivering clear health benefits. SAK prioritize local production, protect rural employment, and reassess the tax in the upcoming budget next month.
Lastly, then, Dowling, how are we looking on the markets? Just give us a sense of the day ahead.
Local markets are in for another upbeat start on the back of higher commodity prices. Gold holding at the $4,600 level. That feeding into Rand's strength, which is currently sitting at 16.37 to the greenback. Looking at crude prices seem to be stable after breaking past $65 a barrel overnight. Oil steadying this morning to just under $64 a barrel. Then back to equities. Wall Street futures in negative territory. That could change as traders eye fourth quarter earnings. JP Morgan kicked off earnings season yesterday with strong numbers, but raised concerns about Trump's plan to cap credit card interest rates. Lastly, in Asia, stocks in the green. Focus there is on Japan, with speculation Prime Minister Takaichi might resolve the lower house at the start of the upcoming parliamentary session later this month, further raising the prospect of an early election.
Right on the money, as always, is our Dowling Lechelan. Dowling, thank you for today. Let's do it again tomorrow.
With Outsurance, I'm saving a whole $729.
This is SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. This is SAFM.
Just tell me about how this concert series fits in with what you are trying to do with these young people.
The reality is that private funders
Regulatory milestone after being officially removed from the European Union's list of high-risk third country jurisdictions. This decision follows the country's exit from the Financial Action Task Force grey list in October last year, and its subsequent removal from the UK's high-risk list. Together, these developments mark renewed international confidence in the country's efforts to strengthen anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing frameworks. Let's speak to Kaya Sitole, independent analyst. Good morning to you, Kaya. I saw the story. I had a sense that it's important against the backdrop of the FATF grey list exit, as well as the difficulties I imagine were wrought onto the South African system by being on these lists. This particular one, the EU's high-risk third country jurisdictions list. How important is it that we are out of that?
Good morning, and good morning to the listeners. It is quite important because, as you can recall, when we were grey listed, the most obvious consequences of us remaining on the grey list was that South African businesses that were trying to transact with counterparties across the world were subject to scrutiny. Now, obviously, that particular scrutiny means that the cost of doing business escalates, and in some instances, people may not even be able to pay with you while you are part of that ethical scrutiny. Being removed from that was indeed a major milestone for the country last year. Well, what had happened during that time is that the European Union essentially mirrors what the FATF does. So when a country is grey listed, they then add on to their own version of the grey list, and that particular document that has now been updated to reflect that South Africa has indeed moved out of the grey list alongside a couple of other African countries.
Which economic players and actors in our economy, Kaya, have been feeling the pinch the most of one being on the grey list of FATF, but also the UK high-risk list and even this EU list? Who are the people that are mostly affected when a country is designated in this way?
It generally tends to be those that transact transactions and facilitate cross-border transactions. would be center of the development and conversation capacity facilitators and local between South African business and their international counterparts. Also, the businesses also may have been used to transactions executed in particular time frame using particular documentation may have been active or laborious. So that would have been the most immediate impact. Obviously, for a lot of businesses that strong partners in other countries would be a cost of transaction that is much higher, but those underlying it is.
Much is said, and I imagine that the government official commentary will be that all these developments mark renewed international confidence, particularly in as far as our efforts against money laundering and and terrorism financing. So measures to counter that. Does it mark that confidence in these systems that we now have entrenched credible systems against these ills?
I think it reflects the hard work that has been done by the South African regulators and the authorities to respond to what had obviously been the process of being delisted a couple of years ago. What that triggered a sense of urgency, forming some of the laws that we need to have, also making sure that some of the processes that had existed in paper were indeed being executed and executed. So this is really the reward of work that South Africa decided to undertake when we were on the grey list and made sure that those particular systems and systems were up to standard. When there was a mutual evaluation, we were then reflecting the country a lot of work, a lot of the that is identified. So all of these other agencies are reacting to the work that the people in the South African government have had to do and have done very well.
Yeah. So, what will the average South African be able to feel a difference? What difference will it make in the lives of ordinary South Africans who are not raising capital on international markets, who are not doing transactions across various jurisdictions? What does this all mean for ordinary South Africans?
Look, it will be marginal, if any. I think most people are probably this the incremental impact has been removed from that. Is where obviously whatever it is that in direct from the where the country listing has been sold. If you are buying or selling services in the market, look, the moment you're on the grey list, we're either going to increase the transaction cost or delay the processing of particular transactions. And obviously, you are now not on the grey list, and all of those additional hurdles, those additional burdens will be removed. But it's really, again, those primarily facilitators of transactions, which is the financial service companies and maybe the technology companies.
Lastly, Kaya, getting off these lists is one thing. Staying off is quite another. It just as you're coming up for air and thinking, whew, we are off those lists. FATF is back and doing more inspections, more evaluations, more assessments. In fact, all the way until October 2027. Can we stay off these lists?
Yeah, that's the difficulty because what tends to happen is that those that engage in money laundering activities and similar nefarious activities are always trying to get estimated regulators. So you may well discover that there are new ways in which now money is being moved illicitly across borders, and now you have to write new and create new enforcement mechanisms in order to do that. Where the benefit of being part of this international and then these international channels is that we are able to learn from those that pick up such activities much earlier, then start ensuring that your processes are speed in order to be able to tackle this. You never ever rest. Turns out that there are new ways in which illicit activities are taken. You can't argue with more systems you put 5 or 10 years ago because that becomes relevant. You have to update, meaning ever so.
Sharp and agile and vigilant. Thank you for that. Kaya Sitole, independent analyst.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
I'm just going to zoom in on the N1 coming out of Pretoria this morning. It's been fairly heavily backed up, very badly backed up, in fact, into a crash scene between the R21 and Buata Avenue. The scene is still active. It's still there. Traffic all the way back through Rigel and pushing back towards Garsfontein. So if you know what you're doing, you come out of Pretoria, join from Buata Avenue, and then you've got a nice, in fact, a clear run down through Midrand into Joburg. But getting there from Pretoria down to Buata, all very, very slow going. The N3 North is under pressure now from from Galulis, heading up towards Linksfield Road. That is a crash at Linksfield Road, which is causing that big backlog. Now, if you've driven from Hillcrest through to Kloof this morning, stuck on the M13, it's still there. It's that crash at Maytime stores. So coming through from the old main road on-ramp, closer you get to Maytime, the heavier that gets. Key Ridge and Cliffdale has been very good this morning. No breakdowns there. Ashburton, Pietermaritzburg also looking good as well. Just a reminder, take it easy across parts of Mpumalanga and Limpopo, where they've been experiencing very heavy rainfall. There's some rapidly rising rivers and some real concern about road safety at those low-level bridge crossings. Please, if there's any water on the bridge, resist the temptation to go across. You never know what's coming down, and this time of year you can bet that it's a lot that's coming downstream. Elevated freeway into central Cape Town, busy across the foreshore area, and roadworks continue on the Unfuneribic at Epping Avenue. So coming from LC's off 35th Avenue on your way to Parow, that's still slow as well. And the South Peninsula, worth a mention, Muizenberg, St James, Cork Bay, a lot of traffic congestion this morning. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The Lions of Teranga have a big plan to demonstrate that they are the 2021 champion.
Thoughtlessly throw their resources around.
It is one thing to get a backtrack like that for a finance guy, hey?
Somebody just WhatsApped me to say that she has a daughter who has hearing loss.
Corruption in South Africa has reached disgraceful levels.
First things first, let's get to my daily that's my point feature. So, did you see Cristiano Ronaldo cry yesterday?
This is SAFM.
Music never sleeps, and neither do we.
Exploitative images and videos. We talked about municipalities in the country. I see people wanting to respond to Kusela Diko in the conversation around Starlink. So let me try and wade through as many as possible.
Hi, John. Now, you brought up an interesting thought there when it comes to the man-child or man-baby, as I first call him from time to time.
Okay, I see. I see what I did there. I see. I was wondering what was happening. My apologies. Because suddenly I was John, right? So I was wondering. So this one came in a bit earlier on in the morning, around was it 1 a.m.? No, in fact, last night actually. So let me pick up on this one that has to do with the AI conversation.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. I want to know if they are trying to stop people from using AI for nudity in the UK. How will that work if people can just use a VPN app?
Morning, Thulas. The issue of drying up of catchments in all our municipalities, especially along the west, is going to happen more and more frequently, especially when we have fires that dry up the wetlands and the other water factories, as well as the choking of our catchments with invasive. Look at this system as a whole, as opposed to water, fire, etc. Thank you.
Good morning, Sulas and the team. Good show as always. Sulas, there's an interesting case going on in The Hague in the ICJ. Sulas, it's a genocide case brought by Gambia against Myanmar on Rohingya. That judgment, Sulas, will have a bearing on South Africa's case against the Palestinian genocide. Sulas. For the very Sulas.
Nice.
Thank you, PK.
Thank you, PK, for alerting me to that. I'll look out for it.
Good morning to Thulasizwe and the rest of the SAFM listeners. What I gathered from your interview with Ms. Kusela Diko is that really people in parliament are not working. How could you sit with a proposal to reform laws regarding AI and stuff from late 2003 to the early 2004, and then like it doesn't make sense to me. It means there's no supervision. People are not.
The frustration is more with the executive who are supposed to have led in this area. And she was saying, if I understood her correctly, we as parliament will now lead the process to now advance that legislation. And you will know, of course, about the dynamic and the tension that, it's there. It's there. It will not be acknowledged, but it's there. Trust me. That tension between the executive in the current minister and the current chairperson of the portfolio committee. It's there. It's there.
Yes, Thulasizwe. It's true. There have been schools in Limpopo, like in Singa, where the students couldn't get their results because they couldn't come in because it's raining. So I don't know. Do the children have to wait for the rain to cease? Or can plans be made? Imagine you wrote the exams and you don't know what the results are. Thanks.
Good morning, Thulas and the SFM listeners. I'm also of the view that these wildfires, there is a third hand to it. You must remember, in terms of Disaster Management Act, once these fires are regarded as a disaster, how procurement is done differently. And this is where money begins to flow. And we are in the year, that's silly season of elections. So there would be ways of trying to get funds.
No. Okay. Apologies for that, Eunice and Sivuile. Computer says no. It's one of those situations. Let me take this voice note that has to do with our learners and returning to school today.
Thulasizwe, I'm a high school teacher in KwaZulu-Natal, more than 27 years experience. I was very angry to hear the minister misleading the country that 30% is just a slogan. It's not a slogan. It's not a slogan at all. It's true. Learners do, they pass with 30%. Go to Google, FET phase, pass requirement. Google, FET phase, pass requirement. You'll see for yourself.
All right. Thank you for that. It's an ongoing debate that has been raging since the metric results were released. And I think we dealt with it quite comprehensively yesterday. Let me play this voice note that has to do with the water situation in Knysna.
Good morning, SAFM and to listeners. It's Sovereign Governor from Durban. Mr. Thulasizwe, with regard to the Knysna water restrictions, it is unfair for the residents to take the brunt for penalizing them for using the water. Okay, fair enough, restrictions are in place. what is a municipality's turnaround time in repairing pipe leaks? Can they show us on record how many pipes have been repaired or what precautions have been put in place to ensure when a pipe is reported leaking or burst water pipe, it is fixed within 24 hours? So what stats can they provide that all leaks are being repaired in the Knysna municipality to save water?
Yeah, thank you for that. And if you are listening to my conversation with Dr. Sean Phillips, he did say that the municipality should shoulder some of the responsibility, especially as it relates to that issue of dealing with leaks in the community. You will get a drought. It will happen, a 1 in 100 years kind of a drought, but it should find your systems being in place and not just, leaking all over the place, just making it hard to retain water. That at least is what I picked up from Dr. Sean Phillips in my conversation with him. That will do it for today. Thank you for listening and thank you for your engagement. And Musa will give you the news at 9, and then after that, Kete Mohlahlana and the team coming through with the talking point here on SAFM. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane, and you've been briefed.
phela isuke inzima hard work I am ngivuke ekuseni ngenza uhlelo kumele ngabenza njalo I hold myself impumelelo sesiseduze nayo shilo ini makanana shilo ini makanana shigepesha machari mare Shilo ini makanana, shilo ini makanana.